Tonight, we're excited to celebrate the life and legacy of Lois Gray. And to get us started, yes. And to get us started, I'm going to welcome the Dean of the ILR School, Dean Alex Colvin.
Thank you, Patricia. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of the ILR School. Still the only school in the Ivy League with labor in its name. So I'll say that. Tonight we're here to celebrate the life and legacy of our beloved colleague, Lois Gray. And I'm going to kick things off by talking a little about Lois, her amazing legacy and contributions. She had a remarkable career in the labor education field, an amazing scholar and teacher. She first came to our school, the ILR School, in 1947, where she set up our first extension office in Buffalo, New York. And she was then coming down here in 1956 to direct our New York City office, at that time called the Metropolitan Extension Division Office. And then later, by 1976, she became our associate dean and director of our extension division. Along the way, through her career, she introduced many innovations under her leadership, including things such as the training trainers model for industry and unions, something that is a foundation for our current practice, the train the trainer model that we still use today in much of our work. Founded the Institute for Women in Work, the Latino Leadership Center, international worker exchanges, off-campus credit and certificate programs, and the Program for Employment and Workplace Systems. Her career was an amazing one. It spanned research, teaching, outreach, and she's widely recognized as an international leader in research on trade union leadership and administration, famously holding to account the trade union movement's democratic principles in how it was treating its own staff within unions. She was also a major scholar on the economics and labor relations dynamics in the arts and entertainment industry, an industry she made personal contributions to in this city, one of the great industries of this amazing city. In recognition of her broad contributions, in 1990, Lois was named the Jean McKelvey and Alice Grant Professor of Labor Management Relations at Cornell. And in 2000, she received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Labor and Employment Relations Association. She became an emeritus professor and shareholder in 1998, but continued to be an incredibly active emeritus faculty member, making many contributions, including playing a key role in the launch of our Worker Institute as ILR redoubled our work in the labor field in the early 2010s, and leaving a real legacy there with the Institute. Now, right up through her passing in 2018, Lois would regularly come into the office sharing her wisdom, her insights, her knowledge with colleagues. And although we're celebrating Lois's life and legacy here, I have this kind of voice in my head of what Lois, if she were here, would be telling me. She'd probably start lecturing me and give me a hard time about spending too much time talking about her life, her legacy, and wanted to hear more about what we're going to do moving forward, how we're going to support building a strong and vibrant labor movement, how the Lois Gray Innovation Initiative was going to make a difference, and celebrating the work and accomplishments of all the innovative, amazing labor leaders we're going to be hearing celebrated tonight. So with that voice in my head, I'm going to stop here and turn over to hear some more from our executive director of the Worker Institute, Patricia Campos Medina, who's going to talk about our program tonight.
Thank you, Dean Colvin, and thank you for all the support that you have always provided to the work that we do at the Worker Institute to advance labor rights, union rights, and collective bargaining for workers. So thank you, everyone, for being here. A round of applause to all of you and to all our sponsors tonight. I am Dr. Patricia Campos Medina, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Worker Institute. This is the celebration of the life and legacy of Lois Gray. Tonight's event is co-hosted by the Worker Institute and the Climate Jobs Institute. So thank you to all the staff for both institutes and the staff of the extension team, including our communications team, to help us put the event together. So round of applause, because none of this is possible without the amazing team. The Worker Institute and the Climate Jobs Institute, ILR, and Cornell University are committed to work in collaboration with all our community and union partners to advance research and evidence-based policy innovation, together with training and education opportunities that give workers and employers the tools to advance economic opportunity, collective bargaining, union rights, promote fairness in the workplace, and economic justice for all workers in the United States. Tonight's celebration honors the life and legacy of Lois Gray by honoring those organizations and leaders whose work reflects the values and lifetime commitment of Lois Gray. She was a fearless advocate for unions, an amazing labor educator, committed to women leadership in the movement, to worker-led innovation, and to union and worker power. The leaders we're honoring today reflect in their work and their duties as leading movement the values of Lois Gray's life. She was fearless in her belief in worker power, committed to innovation, and the belief that by coming together, we could change the circumstances of our current journeys. That is why celebrating her life right now in this moment in time, where we're going to this moment of transition, of a reminder that we must fight for the most vulnerable, for those who are seeking economic empowerment. To continue that work, in 2012, Lois helped establish the Worker Institute, the organization that you will learn a little bit more about today. She saw in the Worker Institute here at ILR a place to generate innovative thinking, solutions to current problems, to the economy and society by helping union leaders understand their own power and come together to innovate together through our leadership training programs, through our training programs, through our education, through our research. The work before her passing in 2018, Lois created the Lois Gray Labor Fund for Innovation at the ILR School. And she dedicated a $1 million gift to continue her legacy here at ILR. The contributions that our donors have made tonight is to continue contributing to that work. And for that, we at ILR at the Worker Institute say thank you to all our donors. And you will see them listed on our PowerPoint and acknowledged throughout the night. But I specifically want to acknowledge our legacy builders sponsors, the Joint Industry Board of the Electrical Industry. Please a round of applause for them. The International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, IBEW Local 3, the New York Electrical Contractors Association, Bladek, Raskin, and Clark PC, Harry Van Arnster Memorial Association from Local 3, the Public Employees Federation, the BTA Northeast, Actors Equity Association, UnionSearch.org, Cohen White Simon, IATSE, 32BJ SEIU, RWDSU, USCW Local 338, and the Hotel Trades Council. Thank you so much for your contribution. As you listen to the stories of the people we're honoring tonight, you will learn how they are carrying on the legacy of Lois Gray. And I remember one thing that I learned from Lois Gray when I was hired in 2014 to lead the Union Leadership Institute as its director. She came to my office and she sat, little petite Lois Gray, she used to still come to the office in 34th Street, and she sat down across from the table from me and she said, "Welcome to ILR. What is the impact you want to have at the school?" That was the question, because her life was a life of impact. And as you listen to the stories of the awards, think about the life that Lois Gray lived, how she role model for all of us, the life that we should lead as labor leaders. And remember that as these leaders are honored tonight, our responsibility is to carry that legacy for the next generation. So with that in mind, we are going to start the award ceremony. But first, I want to acknowledge a dear friend who's going to give us opening remarks and welcoming remarks from the New York State Department of Labor, and from our dear Governor Hochul, the New York State Commissioner of Labor, Roberta Riordan.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, what an incredible honor to be here tonight. So first of all, thank you for that lovely introduction. I am really so proud to be here tonight honoring the life and legacy of my dear friend and mentor, Lois Gray. And, you know, what a privilege it is to be in this room with all of you. She was an incredible person, as we all know, but I'm looking around this room and I see such a wonderful array of illustrious labor leaders and educators. This is really a phenomenal room to be in. I'm very, very honored to be part of it. You know, I was introduced to you tonight as New York State Department of Labor Commissioner, and that is a role that I am incredibly proud to fulfill. But I can tell you right now that I would not be standing here as Commissioner of Labor tonight without Lois Gray and without the Union Leadership Institute, because Lois and the Institute really put me on this path. Her influence in the many conversations that we had about leadership and labor activism over the years completely changed the trajectory of my life. And that's not an understatement. I want to take a moment to congratulate the labor leaders being recognized tonight for carrying on Lois's commitment to education, innovation, and advancing the fight to protect the rights of workers. The Worker Institute and Lois Gray Labor Initiative are doing such important work, continuing Lois's legacy. You are still gathering diverse groups of stakeholders to find innovative ways to amplify the collective voice of the working people. I am honored to contribute to this effort as a member of the Lois Gray Innovation Initiative Advisory Group, one of the longest titles that I have. I'm also proud to be a former recipient of a Lois Gray scholarship, because that's how I went to the ULI. And, you know, to me, Lois will always be more than just a name on a scholarship certificate or a name on the top of a letterhead. She was small but mighty. And if you look at these pictures, you can see it. I just been looking at these pictures. They're so amazing. She was a mentor. She was a confidant. She was a role model. And I'm sure there are many, many people in this room who would say the same thing. I first met Lois more than 20 years ago when I was serving as vice president of AFTRA's New York local. And I was working side by side with my union allies to make the SAG-AFTRA merger a reality. And this was the first time that we were actually going to take a vote, hopefully, to make that happen. It was a massive undertaking. I have to say, unions do not easily merge or do it often. Words that Lois actually said to me. Now, remember that Lois actually wrote the book, literally wrote the book on labor unions in the entertainment industry. And if you've never read that book, you should go back and read it, because it really is phenomenal. She really understood the need for power in an international conglomerate industry. The two of us had a lot to talk about. She believed deeply that that merger absolutely had to happen. And she understood much more than I did at the time. She taught me the threat to labor posed by the shift of digital technology and the growth of an international conglomerate industry that would make the power of artists even smaller than it was at that time. And she thought that we had to do everything in our power to make sure that we could continue to empower our unions to protect entertainment workers from the changes that were happening in this industry. But that was 1998. That was our first SAG-AFTRA merger attempt, and it failed pretty solidly. I learned a lot of lessons. We got up, we dusted off, we kept going. In 2003, we made another attempt, and that attempt was hard fought, well thought out, we thought, and it passed, and we had to have a supermajority. It passed in my union. It failed in Screen Actors Guild by a very small margin. That was, I have to say, a devastating loss. To those of you who know how hard it is to succeed at this kind of thing, let me tell you, it's even harder to fail at it. But Lois never doubted me. She never doubted the merger. Lois and actually Jeff Grabelski, who's here with us tonight, both said to me that those failed votes were just steps along the way to success. They both said to me, if you think something is right, it's the right thing to do. It never stops being the right thing to do. Go ahead and do it. And a failed vote doesn't mean you were wrong. It just means you have to get up and do it again and do it better and win. And we did. So in 2012, we merged these unions, and it was an amazing conversation with Lois, because this was something that she really, really believed in with her entire heart. And, you know, honestly, I look back at the strike that happened now almost 2 years ago, and that would have been devastating to both unions if they had not been won. It would have probably been the end of one, if not both. So that's why that merger had to happen. My conversations with Lois those years were foundational to my understanding of why our work at AFTRA was so important in this larger context of the entertainment organizations. But, you know, we talked about all of that, but let me just tell you, if you had not forgotten, if you didn't know this, Lois was not romantic about the labor movement. Not at all. She was very clear-eyed and understood what was at stake and what you had to do to go out there and win. She was fully aware of the kitchen table issues that unions brought every day to their workers. And it was that unique combination of those insights that made her so special. She was a brilliant, high-level academic mind, toiling every day for the betterment of working people everywhere. That is remarkable. She was a mentor to so many people in the labor universe, and I'm sure I'm looking at so many people in this room that would say the very same thing, because she touched our lives every day. Her pioneering work in education and labor activism uplifted countless advocates, many of whom are here doing leadership today because of her. She knew what it was like to be one of the few women at a table in a labor room. It's something I got to be acquainted with as well, and not always pleasant, but you know, you did it because you needed to. And you needed it to do for the women that came after you. It's not by myself. But now, thanks to the work of Lois and others, there is a seat at the table for many, many other people. And as New York State's Commissioner of Labor, I can tell you that as a member of Governor Kathy Hochul's cabinet, the first female governor of the state of New York, this cabinet is a cabinet of experts, and over 50% of those experts are women. And it was intentional. I don't know if Lois and Governor Hochul ever met. I don't know if they ever had a chance to talk, but I can imagine in my mind what that conversation would have been like, because they shared a lot of commonalities. Lois would have been over the moon that a woman with such strong ties to organized labor, because it was literally labor that lifted Kathy Hochul's family into the middle class, and she always is very aware of it. So Lois would have been really happy to know that a woman with that background was sitting in Albany as the governor. You know, with our partners in organized labor and groups like Cornell's Worker Institute, the governor and I are fully committed to ensuring that future generations of New Yorkers continue to have the opportunity to join a union and be successful, because that is the backbone of this state. I want to thank the Worker Institute at Cornell once again for allowing me to speak tonight. Lois was truly a remarkable woman. And, you know, on behalf of the New York State Department of Labor, on behalf of New York State itself, it's my honor to welcome you to this wonderful celebration of a truly singular individual. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you for your warm welcome. And to acknowledge that we have two other representatives from Governor Hochul's office with us today, I want to welcome Clarissa Rodriguez, Commissioner of the Worker Compensation Board for Governor Hochul here as our guest. Thank you for coming. And Angel Vasquez, Deputy Secretary for Union Relations for the New York State Governor Kathy Hochul's office. So I think I saw him here earlier. So the governor couldn't join us, but she sent all of our dear friends to join us in this celebration. We are going to view next a very special message from Liz Schuler, the national president of the AFL-CIO. She's also a board member of the Worker Institute and a good friend of, you will hear from her. So let's listen to her message.
Good evening, everyone. This is Liz Schuler, president of the AFL-CIO. And it's an honor to bring the voices of our nearly 15 million members and working people everywhere to celebrate the legacy of Lois Gray. And I want to give a big thank you to Patricia and Jeff and the entire Worker Institute and ILR teams for your leadership and for putting on this wonderful event. As I was coming up in the labor movement in Portland, Oregon, all the way across the country, you better believe I knew who Lois Gray was and what she stood for. She was a hero to me, or should I say a shero, and to millions of other women workers and workers in general all across this country. And as I came into this role at the AFL-CIO, it was one of the great honors of my professional life to get to meet her and learn from her. She was a quiet force and brought those who study labor relations in academia, in the world of theory, together with those who actually are practitioners on the ground. She made education a tool that actually changed people's lives and had a real impact in the workplace. She was this incredible driver, making connections across our movement, bringing in the next generation of union leaders and training them in collective bargaining and job training and everything else we should know. Literally until her final days, she was staying up on all the latest challenges and the latest technologies and meeting with her students to make sure the next generation was ready. And what sticks with me more than anything is that she was truly ahead of her time, reaching across our movement, connecting all kinds of people together. No matter your gender, your race, your immigration status, your orientation, your religion, Lois Gray wanted you to see the incredible opportunity that existed for you in the labor movement. Now, I think we can all about imagine what she'd be saying right now about the attacks on labor we've seen these past few months, about an administration that spends every day threatening our rights, our freedoms, and our livelihoods as working people. But I also know she would tell us this: now is the moment to get to work. People are looking for a movement that inspires them, that welcomes them in. And just as Lois would do, we are going to bring them in. We have this incredible opportunity to connect people of all backgrounds around the issues that matter. We're going to build the kind of movement that she would be proud of. And I cannot wait to do that alongside you. Thank you, and solidarity forever.
And here is the moment we were all waiting for, the honorees that will show us by their example and their work, how they have continued the legacy of Lois Gray in the impact they are building in their unions and in our society. And to present the first award, the Arts and Entertainment Organizing Award, is Casey Wagner, Director of Equity at Work Programs at the Worker Institute.
Thank you, Patricia. It is a joy to be in this room. I would like to call up David Levy. Lois is here in spirit with us tonight. To wit, her signature red leather jacket that I wear proudly. Lois would be giving Al Vincent Jr., and Mark will be accepting that award on his behalf. Lois would be giving Al Vincent Jr. the Arts and Entertainment Organizing Award, a standing ovation for her passion was for theater and labor relations in the arts and entertainment industry. Lois wrote numerous articles, co-authored a book entitled Under the Stars that Roberta referred to, which were essays on labor relations in arts and entertainment in 1996. And she lent her expertise to industry leaders throughout her lifetime. Lois, with me as her sidekick, was an avid supporter of many equity stages from off-Broadway to Broadway. Memorable times together included watching Jesus Hop the A Train in the freezing Warehouse Theater of West 13th Street, rocking to the music of Hamilton as we got the last 2 tickets to see its inaugural performance at the Public Theater, or the first performance of Hadestown at the New York Theater Workshop, where there is a plaque with the name Lois Gray gracing a seat in the theater. But my most memorable moment was at the Irish Repertory Theater, performance of the Lieutenant of Ishmore, when the lead actor threw Lois a sly wink from the stage as she sat in the front row before he launched into an absurdist, humorous monologue, the signature of one of her favorite playwrights, Martin McDonagh. As you can imagine, Lois responded with her gracious smile. Near and dear to Lois's heart would be Al's supercharging a robust equity union campaign of political action in 2022, building on one of the only PACs affiliated with an arts and entertainment union, expanding their endorsement program to 22 races in the last election, and empowering their members to be part of an on-the-ground political program knocking on doors in key districts across the country. Lois would agree with Al's clarion call to the membership that you can't separate your union politics because your voice matters in terms of whether you will actually have collective bargaining rights or a functioning NLRB. I will pause. Lois would lift up equity's courageous response when the minute the Dobbs decision leaked, equity successfully bargained for reproductive care and gender-affirming care if a member was on a job that brought them into a jurisdiction that didn't legally provide those services, both protecting the privacy of its members and requiring the employer to pay for the cost of travel to other states to secure the care they needed. Lois would absolutely love that Al's leadership, enriched by the participation in Cornell's National Labor Leadership Initiative, included organizing in both theater and theater-adjacent venues that showcases the performing arts. This includes performing at the Griffith Observatory and the theme restaurant called Casa Bonita, owned by the creators of South Park, which is negotiating their first contract. As Al would say, anyone who wants a union deserves a union. Al was not able to be here tonight for a very important reason that David Levy, Equity's comms director, accepting this award on his behalf, will reveal. Drum roll, please.
Thank you, Casey. It is my honor to be Al's understudy. He sends his regrets that he couldn't attend personally, but he is at this very moment sitting across the bargaining table from one of our largest bargaining partners, Disneyland, where Equity newly represents 1,700 workers in the characters and parades departments. These talented performers and support staff were Disney's largest unorganized workforce until last year, when they unionized with Actors Equity Association, instantly becoming not only the biggest proof of concept for Al's belief in expanding our tent to non-theatrical, non-traditional and theatrical adjacent workplaces, but also becoming one of our union's biggest units overall, and one of the top 10 largest organizing successes in the country for that year. This kind of innovation, along with all the other things that Casey mentioned, underlines why Al feels so honored to receive an award in the name of Lois Gray. Lois's own work shares so much, both in spirit and in deed, with what Al has brought to his work at Actors Equity Association. In asserting that arts work is indeed work that deserves the same high-quality labor relations as any other industry, in recognizing that union work is political work, and in emphasizing the importance of innovation to expand protections afforded to our members and to expand who out there in the workforce can get those protections. Al is deeply honored to be recognized by the ILR. He speaks fondly of his time learning in the National Labor Leadership Institute, which he told me I should refer to as Nellie. I kind of didn't believe him. Both for ways that he was able to develop his skills and for the really important professional connections that he made with others in the program and in the labor movement. And of course, that was under the direction of Jeff Grabelski, who we thank for nominating Al for this honor. So once more, on behalf of Al Vincent Jr., thank you to everyone at ILR and the Worker Institute for this very meaningful recognition.
Thank you so much. But to accept to present the next award, we are going to call on Esta Bigler, who will be presenting the Women's Leadership Award from the Lois Gray Labor Innovation Initiative.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you. As she said, my name is Esther Bigler, and I direct the Labor and Employment Law Program here at ILR. And I apologize for my voice. I'm getting over cold. But you know, I would be here tonight. If they brought me in on a stretcher, I would be here tonight. Professor Emerita Lois Gray was my friend, my colleague, and like many people in this room, a mentor to me. She, like Leah Rambo, our honoree, come on up, Leah, come on up. Our honoree of the Lois Gray Women's Leadership Award committed her life to advancing social justice, women's rights, and trade unions. Two trailblazers, seeing labor education as a tool for workers and labor leaders to learn and experiment to create fair and equitable and diverse workplaces. In short, to innovate, to reinvent education and training programs, and to remain relevant as the world of work changed. Their mission, both of these women, helping to create a just workplace. Lois was committed to diversity before anyone was using that word. The word we're no longer supposed to say, but I say it loud and clear, diversity. Under Lois's leadership, new labor education programs were instituted when she was the director of the New York City Metropolitan District, including the Institute for Women in Work to study barriers to employment of women and their ability to move up into leadership positions, and Trade Union Women's Studies, which is where I got my start as a labor educator. A program teaching collective bargaining and labor law, giving women the tools for their voice so their unions could hear about their issues, participate in union meetings, be taken seriously, and become union leaders. As a former chair of the New York State Apprenticeship and Training Council, Lois, She would be especially proud that Leah Rambo started on her journey to be president of Non-Traditional Employment for Women as a sheet metal apprentice in Local 28 here in New York City. Like Lois, Leah is dedicated to promoting women in the construction trades and their unions. When she was an apprentice, there was only one other woman in her class. One. Through competence, dedication, and vision, she rose in 2011 to become the first woman director of training for Local 28 and the first woman to join its executive board. Through her leadership and commitment, she increased women's participation in apprenticeship from 3% in 2011. Am I embarrassing you?
Yes.
You
You
thought I
down
did.
until,
I'm sorry. I apologize.
so you know.
No, I don't. From 3% in 2011 to 14% in 2021. And she made sure women got the skills training they needed, equitable training, she calls it. And soon, women apprentices were sought after on many job sites. No longer did contractors say, please don't send me a girl. As apprenticeship director, she paid attention to how work was changing and what new skills the industry would need. She prepared all her apprentices for success. She supported mentorship and skill building so women could move up in leadership positions in Local 28. Sounds a lot like trade union women's studies, doesn't it? It's no surprise to me, having worked with Leah on trade union women's issues, when the Biden administration tapped her to be deputy director for the United States Department of Labor Women's Bureau. She headed the Trade Union Women's Task Force, making sure infrastructure work included tradeswomen. In each situation, Leah promotes women in the trades, in their unions, and the union movement. And now, as president of NEW, she brings her vision, increasing women's participation and voices in the construction trades to build careers so women can support their families with good paying union jobs. Leah, on behalf of Lois, I'm proud to give you the Women's Leadership Award. Right, wait, we have to turn it around. Yes, you should hold it. You hold it. She's stronger than I am anyway.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
I did think I was going to be sitting until it was time just to get the word. Thank you for those remarks, Esther. Esther is one of the original mischief makers, I'll say, along with my dear friend Casey, over the years to help us as union workers, especially in our building trade unions, to recognize all the talent that's out there, and to help us to make our unions equitable and to look like the membership and the communities that we serve. So tonight, I mean, a lot of my, when did I start this labor movement? I think it was at the kitchen table. You know, when my mother was sitting across from us and saying, get a good union job with good benefits. That was the message. Not what union job, not a trade, not anything. Get a good union job with benefits. My dad was a correction officer at the time,
and retired as a warden at Rikers Island. And she knew we needed good union jobs. And so that was part of my upbringing. And so because I just was skilled in working with my hands and had that desire and did not have those barriers on me, it led me right to my union, the Sheet Metal Workers Union, Local 28. I would say along the way, I wanted company. I didn't want to be the only. I didn't want to be the first. And I listened to Commissioner Reardon talk about being in those rooms, right? When you just saw a sea of men. And I mean, men, you know, you guys are okay, but we didn't want a sea of you, you know? You know, we needed a little bit of estrogen in that room. And it was tough. It was tough being there by yourself. And so I'm like, well, what can I do? You know, how can women have the same type of economic prosperity that the guys have? And I saw the trades as a means for doing it. And so in my own union, you know, you go to work. You first try, you learn your trade, right? That's what we say. First, be good at the trade. And then once you're good at the trade, you become good at being a labor union member. And then next thing you know, they're calling you a leader. You don't realize that's what you are. They start calling you an activist. They start calling you a feminist, and you're like, what? And when you look up the words, you're like, I guess that does describe me. But what you're really doing is just trying to be fair and trying to find the best workforce. Because we know that best workforce and the best workers is the strength that we need, right? The strength that we need to be powerful as a group. This school, the most transformative education was here. I've seen quite a few of my teachers there sitting in but going to that labor leadership, it just, had just got elected into my executive board, but it wasn't until I went to that summer that I realized what it meant and what I had to do. And it opened up my eyes and it opened up my prospects to even think that I could serve, you know, as a deputy director. So it's that inspiration. When we think about Lois Gray, that voice behind us that's pushing us on. What I did not know, and I just found out from one of my board members, is that Lois Gray served on News Board. She was one of the early members. And so her vision for equity, for labor, it was across. It was across spans and careers. And her legacy has influenced me personally to the role that I'm in today. But I'm incredibly honored and thankful for this award, and a little less embarrassed now than I was a few minutes ago. But certainly appreciate all the other honorees and all the friendly faces that I do see in the crowd, and all of you who have come to support us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah, for those inspiring words and for all you do. To present our next award for the Union Building Award is Jeff Gabrowski. Jeff Gabrowski is a senior extension faculty at the Worker Institute and the Climate Jobs Institute. Jeff?
I'm going to shift to the podium mic. Does that work? There you go. That's a favor for everybody else who's coming after me. This is a very special award for me to give to our honoree, Chris Erickson. Chris is the business manager of IBEW Local 3 and the chairman of the IBEW's International Executive Council. He's also my friend and comrade. Why is this particular award so special? 3 reasons. Where's Jean Carroll? 3, Jean. 3 reasons. First, as many of you may know, I've been a member of the IBEW for over 40 years, and this union has stood by me and my family in good times and bad, and we've had plenty of both. And I learned the value and meaning and essence of trade unionism from the IBEW. I know I won't live long enough to be able to fully repay the debt that I owe to this great union, but honoring Chris this evening with the Union Building Award is one small gesture of gratitude. Secondly, Cornell ILR and IBEW Local 3 have enjoyed a deep and enduring partnership for many, many years. And here's one current example of this partnership. Local 3 regularly and very generously hosts both our national and our state labor leadership programs that some of the speakers have referenced at its magnificent educational and cultural center out in Cutchogue, Long Island. And they treat us like family when we're out there. So thank you, Chris. And I know I saw Michael Yee earlier. Is Michael still here?
Yes, over there.
There you are. And thank you as well for that hospitality. Much, much appreciated. We should remember that this institutional partnership between the IBEW and Cornell ILR was largely built on the professional relationship and personal friendship of two of our respective organizations' most legendary leaders, Lois Gray from Cornell and Harry Van Arsdale Jr. from the IBEW. Many of the photographs that you see on these slides include pictures of Lois and Harry together on their many adventures. And I want to just share a brief story that illustrates the relationship that Lois and Harry enjoyed. Toward the end of Lois's life, she continued to hold court literally from her hospital bed. And I see a number of heads nodding. There was a steady stream of us, or her admirers, who came to visit until her family wisely asked us to give them a little more privacy and space, which we did. But on one of those visits, Lois asked me where Lara Skinner was. Lara is the executive director of our Climate Jobs Institute. And I told Lois that Lara was guiding a trip of union leaders to some distant land to learn more about how labor could lead the fight against the climate crisis. And I said to Lois, Lara is keeping alive an important part of your legacy, Lois. These trips are just like the educational delegations that you and Harry led in the 1960s. And Lois looked up at me and responded with her remarkable and undiminished clarity. Oh no, Jeff. The first trips Harry and I organized were to Puerto Rico in 1958. I mean, she never seemed to miss a beat, right till the end. Local 3 established the Harry Van Arsdale Jr. Memorial Association, one of the sponsors of our event this evening, to honor his life and legacy as we honor Lois today. And for many years, Lois sat on the board of directors of that association. The association, among other things, sponsors an annual Cornell Research Fellowship that was supervised by Lois over the years and is now named for her. Every summer, the IBEW engages a Cornell student who writes a paper on a contemporary labor issue, asking the question, what would Harry do about this? I think Chris Erickson often asks himself that very question as he leads IBEW Local 3. And that's the third reason why this is a very special award. Chris Erickson has kept alive the legacy of one of Lois Gray's closest compatriots, Harry Van Arsdale Jr. Chris has built upon the many innovations that Harry deployed decades ago to build Local 3. And one of those innovations is the local union system of membership clubs. These clubs give voice to the aspiration of union members who are Black, Latino, Asian American, women, and others who might otherwise be further marginalized in a construction industry that's still largely dominated by white men. Let me say it straight, and I'm picking up on a theme that Esther introduced. Harry Van Arsdale Jr. understood before it was popularized and more recently demonized that diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is DEI, was a vitally important way to build a powerful and unified union. And if some would-be tyrant in Washington, D.C. had demanded that Local 3 abandon its commitment to DEI, Harry Van Arsdale Jr. would never have capitulated. He would have had the moral integrity and political courage to tell that tyrant to go pound sand. I cleaned it up for this audience. And he would have counted on Lois Gray for her support and solidarity in his resistance. Lois and Harry worked together to educate IBEW leaders about the diversity of experiences and cultures that electrical workers brought to the union, strengthening and enriching the organization. Chris Erickson has kept that spirit alive, continuing the collaboration between Cornell and the IBEW. One example is the diversity training that Local 3 supervisors take, delivered by Cornell, to help mitigate sometimes hostile work environments. And Chris's great innovation was to negotiate into Local 3's collective bargaining agreement a requirement that every supervisor take this training. Chris has been an unapologetic warrior for the working class and a leader who is not overly risk averse, like too many others in the union movement seem to be. He is unafraid to lean in on progressive fights, as when he joined 300,000 New Yorkers at the People's Climate March in September 2014. He was one of the few building trades leaders who spoke out about the obligation unionists have to confront the reality of climate change and to do something about it. Like Lois Gray, Chris Erickson understands the wisdom of the Native American saying that we have not inherited this earth from past generations, but we are borrowing it from future generations. It is my hope that I avoid a J.D. Vance Trophy fumble. And my great honor to deliver the Lois Gray Union Building Award to my friend Chris Erickson. Yeah, you want to take it?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, for not making me stand here for that whole time. And he kind of told me that ahead of time. He says, I'm not gonna call you up until after I say all those nice things about you. And I appreciate that. But Dean Colvin and Patricia, Roberta, friends, brothers and sisters in this room, pretty special night for me. Thank you very much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it to be in your company and to be here as an awardee of Lois Gray's career, her life, her commitment, her relationship with Harry Van Arsdale and my union. I'm Harry's grandson. Harry Van Arsdale was my mom's father. And Local 3, the Van Arsdale family has had the leadership in Local 3 for over 90 years. The Van Arsdale family, Harry from 33 to 68, then his son Thomas from 68 to 2006 to me. I have a son right behind me. And not 10 years ago, this coming September, the only union meeting I missed was when my granddaughter Madeline was born. And when I came back the next month to the meeting, I put a picture on the screen and said, let me introduce you to the first future female business manager of Local 3. Madeline. She thinks the Labor Day parade is her birthday parade because every year, right up Fifth Avenue, and now she marches, but we wheeled her in the beginning and they stopped the parade, happy birthday, balloons and everything. And so it's a parade, she took an exception to that. But also ILR, my son Thomas, who's here, one of my twins. Thomas is an ILR grad, went to, actually, the dean was his instructor, labor studies. Thomas also was one of the fellows that wrote the paper and was tutored by Lois during that whole process. And while the dean taught Tom labor history, Lois taught Tom how to drink scotch. But it wasn't just drinking scotch. The lesson was that it had to be good scotch. I think that was his best class. Sorry, Steve. But to have that relationship for him and her, was invaluable to him. Certainly, the relationship between Harry and Osdale, and you can see back to 1958, the study tours. Harry was all about education, and it's been ingrained to the members of Local 3 forever. And certainly, Lois had to have an influence on him with that. His role in establishing a labor college at Empire State, the fact that every apprentice in Local 3 graduates with an associate degree. I got my degree from Empire State with a number of Cornell classes, ILR classes that I took, collective bargaining and others. Great history, critical thinking skills taught to our members for more than 50 years out on Long Island at Bayberry Land. And that was a great program. But he was committed to education. Unfortunately, when Harry died in 1986, his career through the 30s, he built the union from 5,000 members to over 36,000 members in all branches of the electrical industry, and watched the labor movement grow as the laws changed and people were able to organize and have unions. And he watched African Americans come out of the South and move into middle America, into union manufacturing jobs and out of poverty. He was an advocate, strong advocate. I've got the pictures of him with Martin Luther King and A. Philip Randolph, one of his heroes. When Harry was the president of the Central Labor Council, he'd have an easel up by the stage with A. Philip Randolph's picture on it. That's how much he admired him. And Harry got us through that. We have women of color that are already retired with more than 40 years in Local 3 as journeywomen electricians, and has been on the forefront of the diversity, inclusion, and equity in Local 3. We probably have one of the most diverse local unions, certainly in the IBW and maybe in the country, and we're very proud of that history. And that was all Harry. What Harry instilled in me was that the only purpose of the union was to serve the membership. And he did it with distinction. His integrity was everything. And it shows, when you have the opportunity and the support of the membership for over 90 years, they know what they got. They got a good deal, and they appreciate the leadership. And I'm very fortunate to have had the opportunity to follow Thomas Van Arsdale, who had a very tough job. Harry was the giant. And then Tom became the business manager and lived in his shadow, did great things for Local 3, but it was always, Harry, very difficult for Tom. But it's been a wonderful opportunity for me. The world has changed. These are different times. We fight. We just negotiated a contract covering 75,000 lives that got ratified last Thursday, 1,100 members unanimously. At a time when things are a little difficult. Today, I had the opportunity to stand in Brooklyn with Congressman Dan Goldman. Yeah, and you might have read in the paper, the Trump administration basically shut down the Empire Wind offshore wind project. And his reason was that he believed that the Biden administration rushed through the process. Process took 7 years to get through. So I don't know how that could be rushed, but the fact is, and as Jeff said, I was at the climate march and I spoke there at a time when the building trades told us not to go there. They were fighting over the Keystone pipeline, and my gut told me, I need to go there. And I went and I spoke, and I said, when people of good conscience come together, good things happen. I mean, We ended child labor in the United States, although they're trying to resurrect it in Florida right now. But we did it. Women got the right to vote because people of good conscience came together. Civil rights. We ended the Vietnam War. We ended apartheid, you know? And I believe in my heart and still believe that when people of good conscience come together, we will be able to fix climate change for our children and our grandchildren. There's no doubt about it. But to have this administration stop that project, that most important project in its tracks, for really no good reason at all, other than he didn't think about it, and it was a Biden thing, is just disheartening. But hopefully it's just a pause. Lara and Climate Jobs New York, which I am part of and very close to, you know, we've been working hard on all of that, and New York deserves better, and that should get fixed, hopefully quickly, but God only knows. These are perilous times. Our democracy is at risk. I believe that in my heart. And the last thing, when Harry was sick, and you mentioned Lois in the hospital room, I'm reading Harry's biography again, and they put 2 phones in, one for outgoing and one for incoming. So he could answer it if he wanted to, but he had one that he could always make the calls. And Harry would have been dangerous if there were cell phones back in his life. He used to have guys driving him, you know, 6 blocks, pull over, phone, pocket full of quarters, 6 more blocks, pull over, phone. Amazing. And when it was 9 o'clock at night and the guys that were with him were going, Harry was starving, he'd take out Hershey bars, you know, and he'd give him Hershey bars, you know, just a couple more stops. But I forgot what I was talking about. No, he was dying. It was 1986, and Reagan fired the air traffic controllers. It was the beginning of the anti-union environment, and that's a battle that we've been in for 40 years. I'll be done in 1 second. Just that was over 40 years ago. But on his deathbed, he said to me, 100 years from now, and he watched the labor movement grow to its peak and then get challenged and go down. And he said, 100 years from now, the labor movement is going to be stronger than it is today. He says, but unfortunately, people are going to lose everything before they actually decide to fight to come back. And we're almost there. We're not there yet. But if that premonition comes true, and I hope that it doesn't, because we should never have to lose everything that this labor movement has fought for in this country, in our city, and in our state. And I hope it doesn't happen, but I won't be around for it 100 years from 86. I did the math. And but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we don't lose everything. So thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I think in this moment where we should celebrate is the courage of leaders like Harry Van Anstel and Chris Erickson for all you do. We need more people of courage to stand up. And I hope this night is about inspiring more labor leaders to have the courage to stand up. One of the amazing things that we do here at the Worker Institute is that we work both with the formal labor movement and with the growing worker-centered economic justice organizing movement. And the next award symbolizes the impact that we have bridging those 2 movements together in the modeling the Lois Gray impact that she left us. So to present the next award, the Worker Training Innovation Award, we're going to have Ariana Schindel, who is the Director of Training and Organizational Development at the Worker Institute. Ariana.
How we doing? Good. Who's feeling inspired? Yeah? And we need it right now, right? More than ever. And I'm so inspired to present this award, the Worker Training Innovation Award. We're giving this award particularly for values that were important to Lois, right? For training that centers worker voice, for training led and for the most marginalized workers, and for training that ultimately builds power on scale. Yeah. And this program that we'll be speaking about was just a seed when Lois was still coming into the office. It was towards the end of her career, which most of us would say was her very last breath, probably, right? And continues today. And at that time, she would shuffle into the office, and Casey and I would share with her about this program that was just growing. And on Saturday mornings, Allison and others in the audience remember, our office would be filled with domestic workers, as every single corner with their children, 8 o'clock in the morning after working the entire week on their one day off, coming to learn about their rights, coming to empower and train each other, coming to stand together at a time when this was the beginning of Trump's first administration, right? When immigrant women, when women of color were more threatened than ever. And that's why they knew it was essential. And that's why Lois knew it was essential, right? To represent and honor these workers and their voices. Domestic workers do the work that makes all other work possible. And absolutely give them some love. It is Care Workers Month, April. And these organizers and trainers that I'm going to introduce do the organizing work that makes it possible for millions of domestic workers across this country and globally to have their power. So I am very excited. I'm going to introduce each of them and give them their award. And after they've all gotten their awards, they'll be coming up each one at a time to speak. So I'm first going to introduce Allison Julian. Give her some love. Come on up, Allison. And Allison was present for many of those 8 a.m.s, and I'm sure Allison has done many 3 and 4 and 5 a.m.s in her organizing career. And at the NDWA Assembly, which Allison was just speaking at, along with Jen Stowe, the executive director, who will also be introducing, Allison really talked about the power of joy in these moments. Yeah. What does it mean for us to fight fascism, for us to come together and do it joyfully? And if we do not, what happens to our movements, right? Bread, we need bread, but we need roses. And so I think Allison represents that in so many powerful ways. She is an incredible leader, a third-generation domestic worker who migrated from Barbados in the early 90s and worked as a nanny for over 25 years. She worked 10-hour, 12-hour days without breaks, overtime, and faced so much scrutiny from her employers. And for that, she has been organizing for over a decade, domestic workers. She was a leader in the successful campaign to pass the New York Domestic Worker Bills of Rights in 2010. She's a founding member of the National Domestic Worker Alliance and launched We Dream in Black, in a powerful NDWA initiative that honors the legacy of Black domestic workers in this country. And as we said, when We Rise and the programs that we're going to talk about today were just a seed, Allison helped turn them into a forest. So Allison, I'd love for you to come on up. Oh, sure. You got the moves, right? Thank you so much. Yes, just more applause for Allison, absolutely. So the second group I'm going to bring up is 2 leaders from our We Rise program, Martha Carballo and Doris Tapia. Martha and Doris, will you please come on up? So Martha and Doris are leaders in our program that Cornell supports called We Rise. We Rise is a peer training and empowerment program for domestic workers. We Rise has trained thousands of domestic workers across New York City and state and Connecticut. And it's a peer training program. So the program really says that workers know best how to build power with each other. And so these trainers that you see, along with 65 other trainers who speak and train in 5 different languages, yeah, are really living Lois Gray's legacy in the training work that they do. And so Doris Tapia is the We Rise coordinator, and she came in, I'll just briefly say, in a training with Allison, if you remember social emotional development, and Doris stood up and was afraid to say her in front of the room. Yeah. And since then, Doris has given more than 250 trainings. She has trained in cities and states across the country. She has mentored and built hundreds of other domestic worker leaders. So Doris, thank you so much for your contribution. And Martha Carvalho has been here at those 8 a.m.s. Remember I told you about it? Family in hand, yeah. And she has been a leader for the CRC, Community Resource Center, which is one of the organizations that's part of the We Rise Coalition. She's led and helped lead successful campaigns to make sure domestic workers were included in against the protections against harassment here in New York City and state. And she has taught hundreds in order to raise their voices. So thank you so much, Martha. Okay, and last but not at all least, I'm so happy to invite up Jen Stowe, executive, that's right, give us a executive director of the National Domestic Workers Alliance. It just last weekend, Jen and Allison and folks here were standing in front of more than 1,000 domestic workers that they had assembled together in this moment to say, we're here and we're gonna fight. And we're gonna fight boldly and fearlessly like the generations of women leaders that have come before us. And Jen's leadership is so exemplary of that. She's the granddaughter of a domestic worker. She's a progressive operative. She's a sought after strategic visionary across the movement. She and Allison have been supporting We Rise, and she has done incredible work to build domestic worker bill of rights across the entire country, to push for federal legislation, and to advocate for the power and voice of domestic workers, especially. And thank you so much, Jen.
Right here.
They're okay. They're okay.
This thing is heavy. Ooh, just worked up some muscles here. Greetings, everyone. I am Allison, like Adriana introduced me, and I am so honored to receive the Lois Gray Award. Just thinking about Lois Gray's vision for leadership, women power, worker leaders, innovation, labor, change, and the list goes on. I am truly, truly honored. Before I get started, I want to just say thank you to so many of the folks in the room. I want to say thank you to Jean, to Casey, to Patricia, to Ariana. The list goes on. And of course, I'm going to say to the organizers and domestic workers in the room. We are here because we are transforming domestic work together. We're transforming this industry one worker, one community at a time to create change in this country's labor laws that have specifically excluded domestic workers. That's until they met us. Yeah, I get to say that. So we are connected through our care work. And through our organizing, we are transforming the domestic worker industry and the labor industry in this country. Domestic workers are the North Star. They're who I look to determine how I am going to do my work and show up as an organizer. They are the trajectory for where we take this work and for beyond. When we think of the Atlanta washerwomen from 1881 to be specific, to domestic workers today, we know that change is possible. Domestic workers and care workers are making the difference in lives of families across the city and across this country. And tonight we are here not only to honor me, but to honor the contributions of domestic workers across this country. And as I received this award on behalf of domestic workers. I received this award on behalf of our movement mothers, like Lois Gray, Dorothy Bolden, and my own mother and grandmother. So this award is to honor them. Domestic workers are transforming this work, like Ariana said, through the We Rise Nanny Training Program. I see how we are making these workers professionals. They're already professionals, but we know through the training and the certification, they are taking this industry seriously. And they're raising the standards for domestic workers in the city and across this country to make sure that domestic workers are valued, they're respected, and they're paid fairly. Ooh. I want to say we're standing in our power, highlighting joy, highlighting love, and highlighting the leadership that we bring to this work. Together, we are making history. And this is a moment for all of us to be proud of. I want to say again, thank you so much. Thank you. I feel so honored to receive this award on behalf of domestic workers. Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, you all. I am so honored to be here, and I want to thank everyone who made this night possible. Thank you, Dean Colvin. Thank you, Patricia, dear Casey. Thank you, Ariana. Also want to shout out Martha and Doris, and just name that Doris is a newly elected member of our board of directors. And I also just want to shout out Allison again. Allison is a founding member of the National Domestic Workers Alliance. She is a leader in our movement, and I'm so grateful to organize with her every day, especially in these times. To follow the enduring leadership of domestic workers is so important. So I just want to lift up Allison's leadership. It is especially an honor to be recognized tonight for this award because it pairs what NDWA truly believes in: leadership development and also innovation. Last week, as Ariana said, we brought together over 1,200 domestic workers, and it was so powerful. Domestic workers, members from our affiliate organizations and chapters. This kind of convening hadn't happened since February 2020. So as you can imagine, we were just like so excited to be together, and it was such a powerful convening. Our worker councils, our affiliate organizations, our current board came together with partners, friends. There were a lot of kids around because what is the domestic worker movement without hundreds of children around, which is amazing. We did some skill sharing, political education, dancing, culture night, board elections. We elected our board of directors, as I said, and this is one of the highest examples of leadership development and innovation that show a force in DC. And our board is mostly made up of affiliate organization leads and worker leaders. And this is to make sure that our direction is always informed by and directed by domestic workers. Innovation, as I said, is in our DNA. And that's why this partnership that we have is so important and crucial. Partnerships like this are what drive innovation so that we can win, enforce the rights that we win, and make sure that everyone gets the benefits that our industry deserves. This partnership is a part of an approach that we have long invested in. And through this training, not only were our workers able to negotiate better conditions and, as Allison said, professionalize their work, but they also felt deeply connected to the broader organizing movement. And it shows that we can do so much with the right containers, investment, and education. So I'm really happy to receive this award on behalf of the millions of domestic workers that we represent every day. And strengthening these programs and investing in the leadership of domestic workers is the only way that we'll win rights and benefits and raise the floor for the domestic workers in this country who are deeply deserving. So thank you all.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm really powerful tonight. My name is Marta Carvalho, as Ariana says, from Community Resource Center. Allison and Jane says everything, and everyone's here. It made incredible all this program for us that we rise. It makes me like so happy. I have a lot of people around domestic workers to support us. We rise, it's very important for us, for domestic workers. It makes easier our life. And everything Alison says. I'm very nervous and I'm so happy to be here. And I would like to say thank you. Every single day, everybody's with innovating everything. And thank you for you guys being here and then help us a lot. We right, it's a lot for me. And makes this is from domestic workers for everyone's here. Every domestic worker who takes this beautiful program, they're so happy and glad. And I think everyone wants to say thank you to everyone. And I would like to say to captains for We Rise to stand up, and can you do a round of applause for them, please? For like captains, they're there too. Thank you. Thank you, We Rise.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Doris Tapia, and I am the We Rise coordinator. And I'm very, very happy to be here tonight and learn more about Lois Gray legacy. And for us, it's like more empowerment of this movement. The legacy of Lois Gray empower us now to do and continue in educating and training domestic workers. I am a domestic worker. I'm very proud of the job I do every day. So it's the work that makes all the other work possible. And I am very happy to work with 9 organizations right now. Not all the captains are here tonight. It's we understand they are working. That's why they are not here. But I just want to say thank you to them because without their leadership, this wouldn't be possible for us to deliver this training every time in their organizations. I want to say thank you to everybody, all my mentors, Allison, oh my God, Allison, and Ariana, they know me, as Ariana mentioned, I was so scared when I went my first day. I couldn't even say my name, what she said. It was very hard for me, but I'm here. And if I can do it, everybody can do it. That's what I said. Yeah. Yeah, I said all the time to my peers, and they are nervous, they don't want to talk, but it takes time to climb the leadership. And we're here, and thank you to everybody, all the empowerment, and Casey, Ariana, and this is a new step for us. Thank you.
Another round of applause for our Nanny We Rise. The Nanny We Rise program is an example of the innovation that the Lois Gray Innovation Initiative has been able to sustain for the last 10 years. And another innovation that we're going to learn a little bit about next is the climate jobs and the labor leader in climate jobs, and now the Climate Jobs Institute. And to present the next award, which is the Climate and Social Justice Award, is Zach Cunningham, Assistant Director for Labor Education at the Climate Jump Institute, standing in for Larry Skinner, who couldn't be with us today.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Hi, see lots of folks that I know and love in the room, which is always special. I'm Assistant Director with the Climate Jobs Institute, and first off, just want to send Lara Skinner, our Executive Director, her regards to everyone, and she really wishes she could be here, was unfortunately unable to, but she did want me to share that Lois Gray was instrumental in Lara's development as a leader. She was also instrumental in giving Lara the courage and sounding board for ideas that would turn into the Labor Leading on Climate initiative that would turn into the Climate Jobs Institute, which has grown just exponentially in recent years. So we owe a great debt of gratitude to Lois Gray. I did not know Lois personally. But as someone who graduated from the ILR school, as someone who works at the ILR school now, I feel her presence all the time, right? And it's not just in this room, it's every day, the legacy she's left. So her belief in the capacity and the power of working people to shape their own destinies, her dedication to lifting up women and people of color and other marginalized communities into positions of leadership, her vision of the ILR school and a labor movement that's engaged in the most important issues of our time, whether it's racial justice or climate change or any other number of issues. These are all central to the work that we do at the Climate Jobs Institute. Many of the qualities that I and other folks here admire about Lois are also true of our next award recipient, Jimmy Williams Jr. So give a round of applause for him. Jimmy's the president of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, and I have the honor of awarding him with the Climate and Social Justice Award tonight. So I'll say a few words. You can stay sitting or come up here whenever is your choice. Good. Williams is a fourth generation glazer from District Council 21 and Local Union 252 in Philly. Go Birds. After serving in many different roles, Jimmy took office as General President of IUPAT on September 1st, 2021. Along with many leaders in the Painters Union and other folks in this room, he's a graduate of the National Labor Leadership Initiative, and he's a strong visionary leader in the labor movement, trying to expand the issues that we take on and that we see as our fight. So just to name a few examples, Jimmy's unequivocally stood behind the Black Lives Matter movement at a time when it wasn't necessarily popular in the labor movement to do so. His unions helped lead the fight to organize and raise standards for immigrant workers, documented and undocumented, who in the construction industry, as many of you know, fight issues like worker misclassification, wage theft. They're some of the most exploited workers in our economy and deserve organizing opportunities in a union. And despite representing lots of folks who work in fossil fuel infrastructure, Jimmy and other leaders in the Painters Union have done some of the most creative, innovative thinking about how do we in the labor movement use our training infrastructure, use our pension dollars, use our political action work, use our relationship with contractors to really push forward a vision of building a clean energy economy that is robust, equitable, and unionized. So yes. Without further ado, I'll bring Jimmy up to receive the Climate and Social Justice Award.
Thank you. We didn't coordinate the outfit. I swear. We didn't. Look, it's an honor, honestly, to be here. And I think whenever you get to go sort of towards the end or towards the, back end of the event, it's always good to pick up on some things other people said. And Chris, one of the things I picked up on is like, what would Harry do? Well, when it gets late, I'm gonna start carrying some of those Hershey bars for some of our guys, because I know they're getting a little tired in the back because I've seen them back there. But honestly, it's such an honor to even be mentioned in categories that when you go to work as a working person, you don't ever think in your wildest dreams that you'd be recognized for the work you do. You just think this is what you do. I'm a fourth generation member of my union that, I never went to college. I didn't come out of, high school with any sort of plan to be a labor leader. I just did what my family and generations before me did. But now I get to say I actually went to Cornell. So I get to go back to my neighborhood and say, yeah, you know what, I went to Cornell. But as a proud graduate of the National Labor Leader Institute, I can tell you I have, met some amazing people in our movement that have been transformed by that. I consider myself one of them. And I consider, Jeff Grabowski an absolute mentor of mine, and somebody I think of today and go, what would Jeff do? And I know that's high praise for, a common theme tonight of what would Harry do or what would Lois do. I often say, what would Jeff do? And Patricia, thank you so much too for this honor. And anytime you're honored as a labor leader, I think you really have to remember your membership. And you got to say, it's about our membership. It's not about the leadership. And we've, one of the things that in doing some of my research around Lois, which, I never had the opportunity to meet Lois either. She believes strongly in union democracy too, and how union democracy means so much to the foundation of our movement. And I think about what union democracy means. Union democracy doesn't mean union democracy for Jimmy Williams and nobody else. Union democracy doesn't just mean for the union leadership. It means for the rank and file, for the membership of our union. And within our union, we're proud to say that, by this time next year, we are going to be a majority minority union. We are not a construction union made up of just a majority of white construction workers. So it makes it very easy to be a leader who stands for the Black Lives Matter movement, or a leader who stands for opportunities for women in the trades. And it makes it extremely easy to represent immigrant workers because that's who our union is. And, our union is not a union just for me. And it's not a union for people who just look like me. It's a union for all. And, we got to remind ourselves these things every single day, especially in this moment we live in when we are being divided around all of those issues every single day. And to stand here today on a day where you wake up in the morning, and every day I stopped watching the news, by the way. I read. I don't watch the news no more because I don't care what a pundit has to say or a pollster or a consultant. I want to hear what working people have to say. But when you woke up this morning and see that the president of the United States canceled the offshore wind project here in New York, you just go, man, is it going to get worse today? Is it going to get worse? And when you know that, issues like climate justice have been used to divide our own members. I spent the last 8 years hearing about the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline. I'm sick and tired of it. Donald Trump has canceled more jobs than the Keystone Pipeline in less than 100 days, period. And when you think about the connection between climate justice, social justice, and all the different issues that the Worker Institute fights for, that we fight for within the labor movement, they're all right there on display as we speak. And I'm going to just say a few more words because they matter, right? We are watching currently as we speak every single tactic that corporate America has used against working people in this country for generations that go back to my great-grandfather, who was a charter member of my local union over 100 years ago. It's divide people based on race. It's divide people based on fear, based on gender, based on beliefs. We're seeing it every single day out of the White House. When you think of, let's cancel, a project because, oh, I thought we had to create energy. No, let's stop it. Let's blame it on Joe Biden. That's nuts. When you also see what happened to a union member from the Sheet Metal Workers Union in Maryland, Kilmar Abreu Garcia, and you go, are they trying to silence the voice of immigrant workers when all I've heard from our membership that somehow believes in some of this stuff is an immigrant's here to take my job. Well, this was your brother. This was a person who worked right side by side with you. And if he could be removed from this country without any due process, it can happen to you. It can happen to me. But that is what has been done by corporate America to working people in this country now forever. But the President of the United States is missing one thing. He's missing the power of the people in this room. He's missing the power of connectivity. And you know what has always shaped my career in our movement is the work and the experience I had going through NLLI to meet people that I know I have inspiration as a national labor leader to be able to sit right next to somebody that I got to go through 3 weeks of training with, like Becky Pringle, who heads the National Education Association, or Al Vincent, who I can say should have been here tonight. No, or folks like Sarita Gupta, and people like Tim Driscoll, the president of the Bricklayers, and people like John Samuelson from the Transportation Workers Union. These are people that I got to know personally. And to be in a position of leadership on the national level, you know, our movement has been filled with a lot of egos over the course of my time. And in order to work together as a movement, it really does mean you got to trust the person that you are working side by side with. And I have had such an opportunity to get to meet folks like that because of the National Labor Leader Institution and because of the work that Cornell does and because of the work that the Worker Institute has done. And you know what? That gives me hope. That gives me inspiration to know that when you're in a fight for your life and when you need to look to your left and look to your right and be able to trust the person this side of you and this side of you, and when you know that they share the same values as you, it's pretty easy to take risk. It's pretty easy to speak truth to power, and it's pretty easy to do the right thing. That's the inspiration that I think Lois Gray has instilled upon people that she didn't even know. So thank you all.
Thank you. With those amazing inspirational words, we're gonna move to a performance by Bev Grant. Let me tell you a little bit before we talk about Bev Grant. Lois was one of the founding mothers of the United Association of Labor Educators Northeast Summer School for Union Women. Another great thing that Lois did. She was a champion of the summer school for women. And as a matter of fact, we are hosting the summer school for women at Ithaca this in July. Yes. So please come and sign up. Lois loves singing and celebrating with other union women with a scotch and some whiskey or whatever and some music. And she loves singing the original song written by our next special guest, Bev Grant, who will join us to pay tribute by singing that song. Bev, we are gonna have wine until 8:30 and some food and open, you know, so it's coming, we're almost done. Bev Grant is the cultural director of the Union Women's Summer School since 1991. Along with her co-presenter, Caroline Solevelo, they are both proud members of AFM Local 1000. And since 1990, Caroline, who is an active committee member, since 2015, they're been performing this song together. Bev will sing this original song, We Were There, she was inspired to write it by another great Cornellian faculty, Barbara Wertheimer, who wrote the book, We Were There. So Barbara actually resurrected the concept of a school union, a school for union women, inspired by the Bryn Mawr School for Women in the New York City garment industry. So please sing along and let's celebrate Lois' life by singing her favorite song tonight together.
I would like to clarify that I call myself a cultural worker. I'm a member of a union, and culture is the spirit of struggle. And one of the obstacles we run up against often is the kind of tagging us at the end or cutting us out but I want you all to understand that we really do bring spirit to struggle and you should use us, you know? We have plowed and we have planted. We have gathered into plots, done the same work as the men. Babies in our arms.
You won't find our stories in most history books you read.
We were there, we're still here, fighting for the things we need.
We were there in the factories. We were there in the mills. We were there in the mines and came home to fix the meals. We were there for the picket lines. We raised our voices loud. It makes me proud just knowing we were there. From the textile mills in Lawrence to the sweatshops in New York, from the fields in California where our children had to work, we fought to make a living. Bread and roses was our cry. Though they jailed and beat our bodies, our spirits never died. We were there in the factories. We were there in the mills. We were there in the mines and came home to fix the meals. We were there on the picket lines. We raised our voices loud. It makes me proud just knowing we were there.
We were Polish, we were Irish, we were African and Jew,
Italian and Latina, Chinese and Russian too. They tried to use our differences to split us all apart. But the pain we felt together touched the bottom of our hearts. We were there in the factories. We were there in the mills. We were there in the mines and came home to fix the meals. We were there on the picket lines. We raised our voices loud. It makes me proud just knowing we were there. We were teachers, we are doctors, we are cooks and engineers, letter carriers, truck drivers, conductors and cashiers. We operate machinery, we fly the big airplanes, and we help to build our unions. We got struggle in our veins. We were there in the factories, we were there in the mills. We were there in the mines and came home to fix the meals. We were there, picking lines. We raised our voices loud. It makes me proud just knowing we were there in the factories. We were there in the mills. We were there in the mines and came home to fix the meals. We were there. Picket lines, we raised our voices loud. It makes me proud just knowing and struggle with our broken. It makes me proud just knowing we were there. Have grown.
We were there and we are here, right? To do the one last section of a community sharing, I'm going to call on Risa Leibowitz, Academic Director of the Worker Institute and Professor of Labor and Employment Law at ILR.
Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful music.
We need music now. We need the arts to get us to keep going. And I think everybody in here knows that. So thanks so much for everybody being here. What an incredible event. I'm not only the academic director for the Worker Institute, I'm also a professor of labor and employment law at ILR. And most important, especially for this group, I'm the president of our Cornell University chapter of the American Association of University Professors. Thank you. So I've been so inspired just listening to everybody, and I wanted to also particularly talk about, just for a moment, about what Jimmy Williams said about democracy and about what we're facing right now. Because I think it's really important to see the solidarity that all of the places that we come from have together, because the attacks we're facing on unions now, the attacks on higher ed, the attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and on social justice, these are all the same attacks. And we have to have each other's backs. And it's so good to be in the room together with people who are educators, people who are union leaders, people who are activists, people who fight every day for racial and gender justice and for economic justice for everybody. So thank you so much. I get really choked up when I'm in a room full of people like you, and I'm kind of like the coffee talk lady right now. I'm a little verklempt. So, but thank you very much. I just also want to say that I'm one of the lucky people who has been at ILR for a long time. I've been here since 1982, and I was lucky to get to know the towering women, the strong and towering women like Lois Gray and the other wonderful women that she kept good company with, like Jean McKelvey, like Alice Grant, and like Alice Cook. And they were just fantastic to get to know. You know, I got to ILR, I said, wow, these are good women to be around. And they were really towering women. And I will just say a few words about all of them, including Lois. And I mean everything that I'm going to say right now is a total compliment. They were tough, they were scrappy, they were fighters, and they were players. They knew how to play, and they knew how to get in there and play in the right rooms and make an impact and make a difference, because they were not only smart and scrappy and fighters, but they had a vision. And they had the kind of vision that makes a difference to those of us who came, like me in 1982, and got to know them, and who all the people in here who got to know them through activism and education. And so it's a wonderful thing to remember people like that. And just another thing before I ask others to come up and speak is that we just had at ILR in Ithaca the Lois Gray and Alice Cook speaker. It's the Cook Gray special speaker, who was Annalise Orlek, a professor from Dartmouth, who you might know because she's a historian of labor and racial and gender justice. You also might know because she was one of the people at Dartmouth who got knocked down by the police when she was trying to defend the students who were protesting. And she was just really inspiring, talking about her work on labor history and gender and racial justice. And she talked about the power of peer-to-peer training all over the world with people she talked to. And so, of course, I got up and said, well, at the Worker Institute, we have a We Rise program that's all about peer-to-peer training and how powerful that is for developing people individually and their connection to the collective and how it transforms us. And so it's all coming around, it's all connected, and it makes me so proud to be here with you. And so this is also a moment where we're going to have some people come up and talk about their personal memories of Lois. And if I could start with asking Jose La Luz to come up. Is he in the room still? Is he here? There he is. Here he is. And he's the former executive director, I remember, or education director at AFSCME. Is that correct? Did I get it close?
I'm so-called retired these days.
Yes. You know, none of us really do.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
It is indeed a great honor for me. I see so many friends that I haven't seen in quite some time. And this is indeed a very special occasion. I can only think of two words when I remember Lois Gray, the extraordinarily gifted, courageous, and visionary labor educator that she was, and that is consistency matters. Because Lois not only remained in the front lines of the fight when it was not difficult to be in the front lines, she was in the front lines of the fight when it was extremely hard and difficult to be in the front lines of the fight. You saw in the slides the occasion of the leadership of the labor movement in New York City that participated in the labor tour to my homeland, Puerto Rico. This happened at a time when there was a very difficult and explosive fight inside the labor movement here in the city of New York to create space for this recent group of arrivals, people from this island in the Caribbean called Puerto Rico, who were strangers, and then they became our neighbors, as this distinguished public intellectual, Clarence Sr., wrote in this book, Strangers Then Neighbors. In the 1950s, Puerto Ricans were part of a large migration of people from my homeland that followed the same path that African Americans from the Deep South followed in terms of fighting for equality and for justice in this country. They had to migrate because they had no other choice, because they were being expelled from their land as a result of the application of these policies to develop the economy of the island, which in fact necessitated and required that tens of thousands of Puerto Rican workers would have to be expelled and become migrants to this place called Nueva York. And when the fight became so intense, Lois Gray was there with her vision to provide a path to allow for my country people, men and women from my homeland, to be able to integrate themselves and play their justful, rightful moment in history by becoming protagonists of their own story, by becoming organizers of the labor movement, by building power for themselves and others. And Lois decided that the time had come to introduce the leadership of the labor movement in the city of New York to the conditions in this island in the Caribbean called Puerto Rico. And those are the slides that you saw there. So just to finish up, she drafted this incredibly gifted organizer called Eddie Gonzalez, who became the leader of the Puerto Rican Labor Leadership Program in Cornell. Yes. Eddie became one of the mentors of hundreds of Puerto Rican men and women who became organizers like myself. In my case, I was fortunate enough to return to my homeland and lead the fight to achieve collective bargaining rights for public workers in Puerto Rico that brought 120,000 men and women to the labor movement in my homeland. So to finish up, the words of this extraordinary song called The Inheritance that many of you have heard about essentially says that every generation has to fight for the freedoms that we are losing and to extend the freedoms that other generations will inherit from our fight. So I dare suggest, sisters and brothers, that our fight is everybody's fight because it did not begin now. It began a long time ago, and it will continue tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jose. Jose is a gifted organizer, leader of the Puerto Rican and U.S. labor movement. Thank you for sharing those words. To close, we're not closing it. We extended the bar. It'll be open until 9 o'clock. And there'll be food, so you don't have to rush out of here. Before I call the next person to share a few words, I want to acknowledge the board of the Lois Gray Innovation Initiative, and then invite Paul Clark from Penn State University, who has belonged to the advisory board, to come and say a few words on behalf of the board. The members of the advisory board who help us do the work and support and keep the Labor Innovation Initiative going is Melissa Amernick from 32BJ, John Arman from IATSE, Rosemary Batt, a professor at Cornell University, Paul Clark, Penn State University. You'll hear him speak from behalf of the board. Shannon Gleason from Cornell ILR, Chris Erickson, IBEW Local 3, Lou Jean Freron from Cornell ILR, and Henry Garrido from ASME DC 37. So thank you for all of the board members for serving on our board and giving us great advice. Paul?
Well, thank you. I just want to say a few words from the perspective of a group of very lucky people. People who had a chance to be students of Lois Gray. I worked for Lois as a graduate student in 1977. I see some of you doing the math. That was a very long time ago. I was one of 3 students who she recruited to work on a project to start a labor study certificate for union people in Syracuse and Utica upstate. The 3 of us came with union experience. I was a member of a union that has left the scene a long time ago, the Glass Bottle Blowers Association. And we all had union experience, and Lois gave us an office in the conference center up in Ithaca. She gave us access to fleet cars, which was probably one of the few cases of bad judgment that Lois had. And she sent us on our way to try to organize these programs. We actually were successful in getting them started. They lasted for many years. But of course, when Lois Gray asked you to do something, you didn't want to let her down. And for the next 40 years or so, Lois was my teacher, my mentor, a colleague, a friend, and a role model, just as she has been over time for many of her students. If you were fortunate enough to know Lois in any of those capacities, you knew you were blessed. Very few people accomplish as much as Lois did in her long life. But what's remarkable about her impact in the world was how it was multiplied and how it is multiplied over and over and over again by the many people whose lives she touched. Her students, the people she mentored, the leaders she advised, the people she worked with, all learned from Lois. And as any instructor knows, the best thing you can hope for is to have your students go out and touch the world in a positive way. And what I hope, and I know that many of us who learned from Lois, what we learned, we continue to pass on through our work as teachers, labor educators, union representatives, and activists. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for helping us keeping her legacy alive. To give closing remarks for the program, I'm going to invite our Dean or Extension ILR, Dean Ariel Abgar, who's also a professor of labor relations, law, and history at Cornell. I don't know.
Thank you.
I think you can use that.
I'm gonna try to use this one. Wow. First of all, the party's already started outside. What can I say after an evening like this? I've had to speak after some very difficult acts to follow. I've never in my life had to speak after so many difficult acts to follow. Puts me in a really difficult position. And I'm also very afraid to look over towards Jimmy's colleagues, who you said were sort of growing tired and eating Hershey bars. So I'm going to do what comes really, really difficult to an academic. I'm going to sort of cut through most of my remarks. I was going to tell you about all the ways in which we're trying to doing our very best to live up to Lois Gray's legacy. I was going to tell you about the different ways in which we focus on our work in New York State, the ways in which we focus on innovation, the ways in which we try to live up to our commitment to being an institution of higher education that helps the labor movement grow and fight for working people and their families. But I won't say all of that. I will try to do two of the three things I wanted to do. And a lot of it has happened already tonight. In preparing my remarks, I thought about some of the things that came up in the discussions tonight. What would Lois do in this moment? What would she tell us to do? What would her guidance be? I was going to ask all of you to share your thoughts on what Lois would do, but we've heard a lot of it. So I'm going to give you my incomplete list of the things that I think Lois would tell us to do in this moment, a moment in which higher education, the area that many of us work in, is under more pressure, more attacks, more uncertainties than we've been in our lifetimes. And so what would Lois tell us to do? I think she would tell us to stay bold and ambitious, even in the face of considerable threats and uncertainties. I'm sure she would tell us to build bridges, to continue to build bridges and join together with others to amplify our resilience and impact. And we saw great examples of that tonight. This might be a controversial one, but I know that she would call on us to rethink long-standing ways of doing things when it is needed. I also know that she would call on us to think about the ways in which our strengths and capabilities at ILR and Cornell can help to support areas that are under even more risk and threat than we are. And there's no doubt that Lois would call on us to hold up the work that we do in outreach, in ILR outreach, with our partners, the partners that we heard about tonight, as an example, as an antidote, if you will, for the claims that higher education has no relevance or impact outside of our campuses. And finally, Lois would remind us to acknowledge and recognize the work of each of our colleagues is doing to meet this moment. So the last thing I'm going to do before we get to join our colleagues outside to celebrate, I want to conclude by thanking the many folks that made tonight possible. Many thanks to tonight's honorees, speakers, and performers for inspiring us. I've just been humbled to be here and to hear your remarks and to listen to your music. I want to thank those who have contributed to the Lois Gray Innovation Fund. We greatly appreciate this support, and to the sponsors of tonight's event. Deep appreciation to my colleagues and friends, to our colleagues and friends from partner organizations, unions, state agencies, community organizations. We are grateful for the collaboration and eager to continue this work. This is my last page. And it's half a page. A very big thanks to the Worker Institute and to the Climate Job Institute teams for all the work that's gone into this uplifting event. My deep gratitude to Dr. Patricia Campos Medina, to Professor Dr. Lara Skinner, who's not here. There are going to be a lot of names, so maybe we'll do a clap at the end of all of them, but let's first clap for Professor Risa Leibowitz. And if you're here and sitting, maybe you can stand when I name you. I want to thank the teams that worked on this evening. Mahia Afnan.
Yes.
Ladina Lug, I see you in the back. Katie Hayden, Anna Rivera, Casey Wagner, and Jeff Grabelski. I too sometimes think, what would Jeff do? A big thanks to our conference center and IT teams, Allison Dunsick, Edward Martinez, Isabel Guerrero, Johnny English, and Seth Dardar. As always, these events could not work without our marketing and communication team. A big thanks to Teresa Morbier Pinella, Laura Perez, and George Adenaudi. I don't know who else. George is here? Yeah. Allison is here. That's great. Finally, thanks to all of you for joining us for this evening. Lois Gray left us a lot to live up to. We heard that from all of our speakers tonight. And I come away from this evening optimistic that we can do exactly that. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you all.